Connected in 3D, Real-Time Solutions and Digital Twins podcast with your host, Ashley Crowder.
Hi, welcome to Connected in 3D, Real-Time Solutions and Digital Twins. I'm your host, Ashley Crowder, co-founder of Ventana, and I'm here today with Ziad Asghar. He is the SVP and General Manager, XR Spatial Computing at Qualcomm. With over 25 years in the wireless semiconductor industry, Ziad's previously led chip roadmap planning across Qualcomm's mobile, automotive, XR, and IoT division. Prior to that, he contributed design of the first UMTS chipset at Texas Instruments. He is a wealth of knowledge and leading the global XR business and unit across product strategy, P&L, ecosystem development, and partnerships in virtual, augmented, and mixed reality. So I'm so happy to have you on. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So let's dive in. You know, you've had a long career in technology innovation. What got you interested in XR and spatial computing? So what led you to leading this division at Qualcomm?
Yeah, I mean, just think about it how, we've transitioned. So we used to have personal computing, PCs and laptops, and then, smartphones came along and we started to do more of our tasks on smartphones. And really, it's an integral part of our life. We didn't stop using the PCs. We used them for certain tasks, but now we moved on to using the mobile phones. I think that there is a similar huge interrupt that's going to be coming where we are moving towards spatial computing. Devices such as smart glasses or immersive AR devices or even MR devices get us to this next world where you basically can merge in virtual and the real worlds in a real amazing fashion that adds to the experience in a very, very impressive way. And I think that's why I think that people will start to use these devices more. And in a way, some of those use cases that we may have on the mobile start to now move to these devices. We still hold dear to all the other devices that we have. So as I've thought about it, I've said, like, hey, what are the key technologies, what are the key experiences that we want? And one thing that comes across is I always call it internally that it's a very Qualcomm sized problem, right? Because you got to get to a point where you can do all this processing but at the lowest power possible. And this is really our pedigree. We've been doing this for the longest time. We don't come from devices that are plugged in. We come from devices that have tiny batteries. And those learnings set us up extremely well. And then some of the changes and the acquisitions and the implementation and the R&D that we have done over more than a decade today, specifically in XR, sets us extremely well because we own all the perception, we own all the technologies, and of course the broadest roadmap in the industry for XR products. So I was like, hey, this is a great place. And I think especially now the inclusion of AI makes certain things possible that were just not possible in the past. So great inflection point for our industry, in my opinion.
Definitely. I mean, now, I use my cell phone for everything from ordering food to checking my calendar and everything else. And, even though I'm a millennial and I guess the Gen Z makes fun of us for still wanting our desktop computer to do certain things, it's like memes on the internet, but it makes sense because XR gives us this seamless access to data. That we could never have before, and Qualcomm is set up for that. I mean, I did USC Engineering School, which is now called Viterbi. So founder of Qualcomm, who really was the inventor of being able to have incredible amounts of data streamlined to mobile devices. And so, yeah, you guys really are set up. So, you guys have been the leader in wireless and mobile computing. What was the company's initial vision for XR and how has it evolved under your leadership?
Yeah. But, on your previous comment, I'd say, hey, I really look forward to the time when the Gen Betas make fun of the Gen Zs with their spatial computing devices. So,
that's... I know. Yeah. Get rid of that old cell phone.
There you go. But coming back to your question, I think the key part over here is that what is a device that can actually, in time, really start to take some of the functionality of a smartphone? And with Qualcomm, mobile has been so central to us, even though we have diversified in a massive way. We are in automotive, we are in XR products, we are in IoT, we are in computing, we are in all those different product lines. But I think the next gen consumer device is really a spatial computing device, and I think to a great extent, some of the popularity that we are seeing with Meta Ray-Bans shows it extremely well. That even with a device that doesn't have full display capabilities today, but it really shows the promise of what a device like this can do, and people are really flocking to it. It looks good. It also adds to what you want to do in a given day. And I always say probably the best device ever to do agentic AI is basically a smart glass. And I think great credit to Meta and team how they've been able to create this good product. But I think it shows people what a good spatial computing device can do. And that's why, from a Qualcomm perspective, we've been very focused on making sure that we are leaders in this space and we continue to make the right investments to be able to make this space successful.
Yeah, no, I mean that's great. Those Ray-Bans, and at the end of the day, they don't, from a spatial computing perspective, they don't have a lot of content on them today, but just the minimal amount is so useful. So I know I can't wait till the AI translation has more languages
Yeah,
because it's
indeed.
incredibly valuable. And so, you touched on AI. What are some of the technological breakthroughs that are making this all possible today, and where do you see the biggest impact?
Yeah, I've had this great privilege of basically driving Qualcomm AI strategy for the last 6 years before I took over the role in the XR business. But the real promise, I think, some of the key challenges that we had with MR have been what? Right? MR, for example, there has been problem with the availability of content. Well, with the inclusion of AI, you can actually start to create that content. The techniques like, for example, NERFs and even Gaussian splatting are allowing you to be able to create 3D content quite easily from 2D sources. And I think that in itself really starts to make this happen in a very, very good way. That's one. Secondly, I think generative AI again allows you to be able to personalize these experiences in an amazing fashion. So imagine what happens today, right? There's a graphics designer. He creates a world, which is a virtual world, and you see that. I see that in my 12-year-old daughter sees that too, right? But our likes and dislikes might be very, very different. But with Gen AI, if I could basically tap into the likes and dislikes of that consumer, I could figure out what is interesting to them, what textures, what colors, what themes, and then if I could create a world that's much more suited to that person. Now you got a personalized virtual world. And I think that really changes the way we interact with it. And it continues to evolve and change as your likes and dislikes evolve. So some of the challenges of MR, I think they're starting to get solved by the inclusion of AI. Another thing has been, the ease of being able to, for example, navigate within a virtual world. To have, for example, a LLM that's integrated into it, you can do a massive job of being able to really just talk to it and be able to navigate through that part of the world. For example, we're working with a company and they do gaming, and we said, hey, these NPCs that you have in the games, they're typically standing over there and they have these lines that they will just say. But I can have a full LLM session with one of these NPCs while the LLM is actually running on my chip. You don't even need the cloud because we have so much on-device AI capability. So you see, if you put in like the graphics capability, the LLMs coming in, and Gen AI part, MR gets much, much better. There is a similar analog on the AR side and on the smart glass side, right? The ability for you to have a camera up top that's able to see what you see means that the glass actually is seeing what you see, and that changes, the way it can actually do multimodal AI. Because for multimodal AI, it needs to understand what are you looking at. The context that I'm able to get, if I can feed that into an LLM, the fact that it's daylight right now, the fact that I'm in the office environment, it really changes that response. Because see, today you go and you ask an LLM a question, it gives the same answer whether I'm asking or an 8-year-old boy is asking that question. That
Mhm.
should not be the case, right? So really, I think that those challenges start to get solved. Now, like you mentioned, a great use case, right? Translation. I was actually with one of our partners in China, and they've come up with these glasses, and the whole meeting was in Mandarin, and basically the displays were showing me the English translation on the display while I'm wearing those glasses, and I didn't have to stop them every 5 minutes to translate, for example. It's an amazing use case. Or you go out to a restaurant in a country where you don't speak the language, and you can hold your menu, and basically it puts in the translated words on that menu and superimposes it for you. Right? There are so many such very good use cases that take away the friction for a lot of these scenarios. And I think similarly, navigation and then I always look at verticals. So if you think from a medical perspective or education perspective or retail perspective, even enterprise perspective, right? There's so many use cases on remote help and remote assistance. just massive amount of things that become possible because of the addition of XR and AI. I think these two are truly symbiotic technologies, and they come together in a way that basically is going to really set apart the experiences that consumers really want to have.
Definitely, definitely. And I want to hit on that, content creation piece is really what I think has been holding back the entire XR industry for years, decades, however long you want to go back. And having AI being able to automatically create 3D models. Siemens at CES, when we were there, announced their AI integration with their CAD products to help
Um,
automate some of that, which is incredible. And then with remote collab, besides healthcare, but within industrial manufacturing, I know one of our clients, they have tons of 3D models, and they're doing real time analysis. So
mhm,
the data is from the machines at all their clients is feeding into these mixed reality experience to do real time simulation models, and then they're using AI to not only analyze that data to give the client better feedback.
mhm.
They're also using AI to create synthetic data to then run all these different use cases and develop better products and give better advice to their clients. So yeah, it's this convergence of all this technology. It's so exciting.
I think so, and I think XR is a huge beneficiary of this AI advancement that we are seeing, and actually AI too, right? When you, like I said earlier, right? I mean, if you're talking about an agentic like AI, the best device is a smart glass because you're driving or you're talking. It should be able to do those tasks for you, and you can just talk to it. There is no need for a keyboard. There is no need for holding something up. I mean, the equivalent of this is that you got to hold your cell phone all day long like this to be able to, be for it to be able to see what you see. But especially enterprise use cases, we have multiple partners. You mentioned Siemens. There are others as well, where I think it's really, there's so much low hanging fruit that we can just tap into very easily.
Yeah, I really feel like we've gone past the, oh, this is exciting, and there's true ROI
That's right.
happening within these businesses. And I don't know if there's any case studies you can share of other examples that
Yeah.
you guys have helped with.
Yeah, so we're working actually with a partner that has a lot of oil exploration and all, and you can just imagine that you are able to actually put on these the MR or HND like device, and you can go in and essentially send a person over to this oil rig, for example, and they need to replace this part. Can you imagine the amount of time that it takes to train that person? But now you can actually have them walk them through step by step, and it tells you, hey, take these two screws out first, and then you do the next step and the next step, and it's really extremely easy. Or an equivalent of this is also, we have a company where you could basically be wearing smart glasses, for example, a foreman on the workshop floor, and it can identify that there are these five security or safety violations at this point in time on the workshop floor that nobody might have noticed, right? So the applications are really many. We have a partner also that does this for aircraft management and aircraft maintenance, and they basically send out people where they are able to actually help them replace parts and maintain it by leveraging AR technology, and really reduces the amount of training time for them, and also allows them to send in many more people than who can actually typically go, because they don't need to spend all the time getting trained first.
That's great. And some of the ROI, I'm assuming at least that I've talked to people about, are cost savings, time savings, training people up faster. I guess being able to have more experts like in the room, quote unquote, that you can stream in,
Right.
that you could never have before.
And fewer errors, for example, right? That's a huge benefit for them because this assistance is there, and many a times there are mistakes that are made that can be prevented in a very good way by using these techniques.
Definitely. And my first job was actually at an oil refinery, and you do not want to be making mistakes in dangerous environments like that.
Indeed.
So yeah, I wish we had this back when I was there. I was a little nervous. Um, but one thing that's important, especially with this real-time support, is latency
Mhm.
and power consumption and network connectivity. These have all been barriers to XR. So how are you all helping overcome these challenges to make this a reality?
Yeah, I think what we have been working on for quite some time has been what we call split rendering, right? So now, in a way, what you can do is there is a lot of rendering, for example, in some scenarios that may be happening remotely. But then with the engines and the compute that we are packing into our MR products now, we can actually do massive amount of that on the device. And as you can do that on the device, it actually starts to bridge a lot of that gap that you have with latency, especially when all of the rendering is happening, remotely. Now, in this case, you could have, for example, LSR-like functions on the device in the end to be able to give you seamless experience while still being able to, stream the data down from a server. But the other thing that people are also looking at is to continue to do more and more processing itself on the device, more rendering on the device. We have the best in class graphics engines. We have the best in class camera technology for video see-through like experiences. We have a very dedicated block inside for computer vision to be able to identify objects, to be able to track things and all. And right with that, what you can do is you can actually do more on the device, which again helps with the latency and in scenarios where you might have poor connectivity.
Yeah, I mean that's great. And there are certain scenarios where, with the DoD, they don't want you connected to internet at all,
Yes.
and then the requirement is you must do everything on device. And it's incredible that you're starting to be able to do that. And then that kind of leads, you guys power so many different headsets. I mean, the XR ecosystem is still pretty fragmented. There's a lot of different platforms, a lot of different hardware. How are you helping to enable a more seamless, like interoperable ecosystem, which I know there's tons of groups out. We're all trying to push this, but it's a big battle to
Yeah,
solve.
I think it is. It is quite diverse for sure at this point in time, and that comes from the fact that this area is relatively new, still somewhat new. I guess it has been around for quite some time. But I think what we need to work together is to work with alliances where we can actually create a way forward where we are not like reinventing the wheel for each and every different use case that we might be thinking of. So, for example, we are involved with a few of these different alliances. There is AR/VR Alliance. There are other ones also that we are involved with to start to make progress towards being able to standardize some of these interfaces and some of these file formats, perhaps, such that we can actually do it in a way that different devices can seamlessly work just from the go rather than having to do anything specific. So there is more work needed, but I think it's starting to get to a point where people now see the fact that with these different providers, us being central in the sense that we are really enabling the full ecosystem. But I think having the perception piece and all the different technologies, we can actually play a very critical role in aligning everybody together to a single standard such that we are actually able to make this easy for everybody to use.
Definitely. And I know one of the things I'm excited about is Google pushing Android XR, which I'm not sure if you all are contributing or working with them on that, but just having more of this standard operating system. So if people are building content, it can work across different devices,
Yeah.
which is
So,
exciting.
so yeah, we are working very closely with Google on that. We're their partners with Android XR, and we're providing not just the hardware, but also working with them on the perception and other aspects. But in a way, what we see is you have Horizon OS coming up from Meta. You also have Android XR coming up from Google. I think they're becoming good, strong ecosystems that we can actually start to scale based on. We may have yet another one, perhaps in China, but I think it's not going to be very different than where perhaps smartphones stopped, right? If you recall, at one point in time, we used to have Symbian and we used to have other ones, but really it's come down to two at this point in time. I think XR will take a similar path, in my opinion, as well. So I think it's very very positive, and we're getting to that good point. I think we worked of course with our partners like Samsung as well. So we talked about the first Android XR based device coming out. That's actually based on our XR2 Gen 2 platform. So yeah, a lot of these things are new moves, but very very positive at this point in time because now we see the ecosystems really stabilizing, but at the same time, a whole new form factor like the smart glass part coming up in a very very strong fashion as well. And especially we are in touch with all the different display vendors, and we think it's getting to a point also where now you have the ability to be able to manufacture good waveguides based displays and others that can go into pretty thin devices. And I think that's the other big thing that has been a little bit of a kind of a damper on that segment to grow. But I think that problem is getting resolved too. And then for on our end, we are pushing on all cylinders, right? So every product that we come out with, it has a better transistor. It has a much better IP that we use inside for lower power, for being able to be much more performant, and at the same time, completely new architectures as well to be able to reduce power consumption, yet to be able to perform at the highest performance levels.
Amazing. And I know we keep touching on, the dream of one day these lightweight, beautiful glasses that do everything. How far away are we from that reality?
I think in the 1 year time horizon, we will start to see glasses that basically have displays in them. And then, of course, one of the challenges with glasses really is the fact that there isn't enough space to put a battery. But you can imagine that on the enterprise side, actually, a bigger device is much more acceptable because it has to be ruggedized and it has to be used in very tough environments. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that fashion statement. So I think it will happen fairly quickly in enterprise. And then even on the commercial side, we actually have partners that are looking at launching within this, about a year time horizon, where people will be able to wear glasses that are, about 50 grams or in that, weight group that basically have fully capable display subsystems built into them. And then you can imagine the scenarios that we have talked about where people could wear this all day long, right? Where as they're going through and they're navigating, the device is able to just bring up a simple navigation, not too intrusive or anything like that. Hey, you need to turn right over here, for example. And I think those are the kinds of use cases that are really going to excite consumers to move into this form factor. Another other interesting part is that I think what Meta Ray-Bans have shown is the device needs to look good. It needs to be something that's a fashion statement as well. And I think as people are looking at that angle too, I think there are so many options. And as we make it easier for people to be able to launch these devices, I think many of those fashion brands and companies will come up with these products too. And then the inclusion of AI, whether on the device or on the cloud. And by the way, we have these kind of like three paradigms. You can do the AI in the smart glass case on the cloud, where you use the phone to just be able to connect back to the cloud and the AI processing happens over there. The second scenario is basically you could essentially have that AI processing happen on a smartphone. So most of us still carry a smartphone. You can offload that processing over there. The third scenario is that you can, just like you mentioned, the Department of Defense like scenarios, you can actually have an AI co-processor that sits on the body of a person that can basically do a lot of the AI processing on the device as well. So we see all three of these paradigms coming together as we move towards smart glass plus AI like use cases.
Yeah, and for the first two scenarios, Qualcomm's been instrumental in 5G and edge computing to enable that type of XR experience for real time, untethered experiences. So, are you all continuing to push those technologies as well to help enable more XR untethered?
Absolutely right. So 5G becomes, and in fact, the way I put it is it's basically all the different connectivity technologies 5G, Wi Fi, Bluetooth. Again, one of the key areas where Qualcomm has been investing for many, many years. And we really excel in creating these technologies with the lowest power possible, but at the same time being able to receive the signal in the most complex of scenarios. Now, the other part that's coming together along with this is that we're truly moving to this hybrid AI like configuration as well. Because I think the advent that we're seeing on the AI model side is smaller models continue to become more and more capable. So for on our devices, for example, we can run on a smartphone, we can run an 8 billion parameter model. That's pretty capable, and actually a model like a Llama or for example QN and Baichuan in China, these different models essentially can run on the device. And as you're able to do that, you can offload to the device. And I usually explain it this way. It's almost like we'll get to a point where there is a constellation of devices around the person. You have your smart glass, you have your smartphone, you have your earbuds, you have your smart watch. And really, the device should be able to decide where to do that processing, which particular device is the most optimal for it. So let's say you're at home, your phone is available, so you do the processing on the phone. But then you go for a run or you go for a bike ride, and now it starts to do that same processing just on the smart glass. It goes to a smaller model and continues that experience in one way or another. So I think that continuity of experience will make it even more attractive to consumers. And it's actually something that we can do quite easily at this point in time.
That's awesome. I need to get a smartwatch so I can be prepared for this. But that's it. It really is exciting that you believe within the year we're going to start seeing more and more consumer tech here. But from the enterprise side, digital twins and real time 3D content are becoming crucial
Mhm.
for manufacturing, maintenance, training, and even retail. How does Qualcomm's technology help enable scalable XR workflows for these types of enterprise use cases?
Right. So I think we basically have like I mentioned, the widest roadmap when it comes to devices. What we want to get to is some degree of an ability to be able to have multiple tiers of products products depending on the need. And then you can have these digital twins, for example, of an airport or of a hospital. And there are even actually countries that are talking about country level digital twins, because there is so much benefit they can accrue in terms of being able to provide services and first responder like scenarios. So we have actually enabled all those different classes of products. And like I said, if we can get to a certain degree of standardization where you can have file formats and all that are consistent between these different devices, we can actually start to offer many different tiers and categories of devices that all are able to leverage that experience. It's a little bit restrictive at this point in time, but people are doing these digital twins like devices with multiple different partners of ours. And we are working with partners that, of course, have this ability on the cloud side also to be able to stitch this together. But we see this advent becoming much more popular in coming days.
Definitely. Yeah. And I mean, at Ventana, we really try and help solve that 3D interoperability publishing problem, because while we're all working towards these standards, at the end of the day, some platform is always going to require something slightly different, unfortunately.
No,
But
we need all these great ideas to be able to make this happen. Absolutely.
yeah. And, looking out, I know we talked about 1 year from now. Over the next 5 years, what are some of the big trends you think we're going to see?
Yeah, so I'm going to make this bold forecast over here that within 5 years, all of us will be carrying an additional device with it, which is a spatial computing device. It might be a light smart glass like product. It might be a fully capable HMD that allows you to, have a fully functioning digital twin or fully immersive sort of gaming experiences. But I think we will all have a device like this. And I think those of you who have tried some of these devices realize the amazing benefit it produces. And like I said, AI continues to merge with XR in a very, very big way. And I think that's what's going to make these devices far more valuable and useful to our consumer partners.
Definitely, definitely. And so for the developers and businesses out there looking to invest in XR, what's some advice you would give them and where to start?
Yeah, I think this is such an amazing field, right? I mean, when I look at all the different products that Qualcomm works on, I feel that XR is probably among the most what should I say, most blue ocean sort of an area, right? There's so much innovation that still needs to happen at the device level. For example, right, we got to get these smart glasses that last through the whole day. We got to basically have perception that is pristine with full amazing eye tracking and hand tracking, and to be able to understand full 3D reconstruction. So a lot more work needs to happen in algorithms. On the next level, we need to get to better video see-through experiences, much better imaging quality. So at the core IP and technology level, all those things need to get better. So there is room for improvement at every one of these levels. Then on the level above that, it's basically on the experience level, right? Can you stitch together and create something that's not available today? For example, on the education side, I always love the kind of the integration of smart glasses and AI on the education side in a massive way. You can imagine that a student that's actually learning something and their smart glass or their VR device is actually able to answer their questions. It's able to address the difficulties that they might have. A simple camera that looks towards the person can actually even gauge if the student is able to understand the material that's being delivered to him, and if not, they can change the pace of that using Gen AI, right? So the amount of amazing work we can do in medicine, in education, in enterprise, in retail, right, in entertainment, there is so much opportunity for innovation. And then, of course, even on the form factors itself, people are developing different kinds of devices that are able to do this. Whether a smart glass that you take it into your car and it's able to connect with your car. So the intermingling of these devices is going to be extremely interesting as well. We, of course, have the Snapdragon Spaces platform also that we're going to continue to enhance as time goes by to be able to make it even easier for people to be able to come onto the platform, create these experiences, and just wow the consumers.
That's awesome. Well, I'm so excited for everything that Qualcomm is working on to really push and enable the XR space. So, where can people follow your work and hear about all these amazing updates?
Sure. So please follow me on LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter. At the same time, we put out a lot of the blogs and white papers on the Qualcomm website. So please follow me, and you'll see a lot more pretty exciting stuff coming up in the days ahead.
Awesome. Well, Ziad, thank you so much for joining. This was so great and excited to continue working with you all.
Thank you for having me. It was awesome. Thank you.